Well, Flames fans, you asked for it and you got it. The Flames have announced a new GM, and it's none other than number 24 or number 22, whichever era you wish. It's Craig Conroy. Dylan and Chris, we're going to talk about it. Armchair GM podcast brought to you by the Hockey Podcast Network.
Well, we've got a new GM, and just as has been reported on all weekend and pretty much predicted by 90% of the hockey world for the last couple months, it is Craig Conroy. Um, at first, I was quite skeptical of it because the way I looked at it was he spent 9 years learning under Tree Living, and Tree Living took us one step forward, one step back, one step forward, two steps back, two steps forward, three steps back, and then left. So
Here's the bag. I'm out.
yeah, exactly.
Good luck with all these no moves.
So I was hoping for a completely fresh set of eyes, but after the press conference, I'm a lot more at the press conference and the Flames Talk interview afterwards. I'm a lot more positive about it than I was. I'm a lot more optimistic about it than I was. If literally any of this isn't just lip service, then I think a lot of us are going to be happy, even if any of it isn't lip service. So we'll get into it a little bit. I know you haven't had the chance to actually listen to the press conference yet because you were working, right?
I was busy day, but we felt we needed to do a quick podcast and get this GM conversation put to rest for now.
Absolutely.
There won't be anything that he'll be doing over the next couple of weeks, anyways. But leading into the draft, I've got some high hopes as far as the draft goes when it comes to Craig. He's a pretty good. He has a pretty good eye for talent. I'll give him that for sure.
I agree.
I know if it wasn't our last episode or the episode before that, when we quickly discussed kind of GM potential for different people, we did touch on Craig Conroy slightly. He's a super likable guy, and I just really hope that he's got that fierce GM mentality that is going to need to be the case here when you're trying to clean up what I call a mess, right?
It really is.
He's got a lot of work ahead of him. Yeah. I don't envy what he's about to go through, but I feel like he's the type of person. I almost said player. I feel like he's the type of person that can not get too stressed out about it and roll with it and hopefully get it figured out. So I will give him the time that I think it takes for him to achieve what needs to be done without criticizing him for now. And I will hope for the best. I'm optimistic with the choice, and we'll go there.
Yeah, I'm pretty much at the same spot. Like, I know that often in these press conferences and stuff like that, there is at least a little bit of lip service.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he has a fan base to appease, right? Because I mean, there's a big chunk of this fan base that is fed up, and wants change. So
and Mr. Steinberg asked him in the after the press conference interview he had with him about he said lots of people on the text line there were kind of frustrated and wondering about if he's got that cutthroat or the ability to make the hard decisions, and he spoke on that quite candidly, and he said he actually said he often feels bad about it because he has to take that part of himself home, and
Right.
often his family kind of had to deal with a little bit of that. Um, but I feel like the tough parts of Conroy is like the nicest part of Chris.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, ooh, tough
I know
Conroy.
I'm terrified, right?
I would just like to say just real quick before we get too far away and it goes unnoticed. Um, Mr. Steinberg, is that where we're going with?
I just
Mr. Steinberg. You sure it's
Mr.
not? Damn it, Steinberg. It's not that.
No, and it's just sometimes it's Steinberg, sometimes it's Pat, sometimes it's go fuck yourself, you fucking Homer. But is what it is.
Mr. Steinberg.
I always laugh when people call him a Homer on a fucking
Right.
show called Flames Talk.
I guess that's half his job.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah,
I mean, I call him a homer on the Fan 960, which
yeah,
just happens to be a local radio show, not
yeah,
necessarily Flames Talk. So
yeah,
that's my defense in that.
yeah. Um. Anyways, let's get into it a little bit. So almost all of what he said was positive. One of the first things that came out of his mouth was asset management.
Interesting concept. I like it.
Interesting concept. He's been obviously reading what fans or listening to what fans have been saying, because that is absolutely one of the biggest things that we hear.
Yeah.
Um, so that's interesting. Um, and he came right out and said the Gaudreau situation taught him a big lesson,
Good.
which is obviously really good. And he said that can never happen again, which is blatantly obvious.
Is he reading my thoughts again?
I know, right? It's like
Jeez.
I swear to God, Chris, I know you haven't heard any of what he said really, but like so much of this is exactly what you want to hear. And I'm
Yeah.
curious how much of it's what we want to hear and how much of it is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but anyways, yeah. So he said that, and that's a really positive sign, especially in combination with he mentioned he wants to build through the draft, and he mentioned Tampa Bay and how they've got a bunch of drafted core pieces,
Yeah.
and they've kind of traded and signed free agents around the core pieces. It's been, if you look at them, they've got the Stamkos, Point, Kucherov, Hedman, Vasilevsky, like all those are their drafted players.
Yeah.
Um, and then they've traded and signed for Coleman, for instance, and Barkley, Goudreau, and all, and like the bottom of the lineup guys, and I guess they traded for Sergachev, but he's become a core piece, and they've traded, but they've kept the core of the team around.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a really good concept. And I mean, for me, that suggests that our scouting team has been subpar. When
I
you look
mean,
at
a
it,
lot of those guys, like Point was a low round pick, but like Hedman was a first round high draft pick,
mhm.
and so was Stamkos, I think was first overall. Um, but and Vasilevsky was a high first rounder too, I believe. I'd have to look that up. I'm pretty sure he was a high first rounder, but
Yeah,
I could be totally wrong on that.
yeah,
Um,
but I mean, you look at some of our, first rounders. I mean, not. I mean, they've been good players. They're just not here anymore.
they're just not here anymore, and I think that's why I say the building through the draft and the asset management in
Mhm.
combination, if those things are in lip service, that's a huge positive to actually hear a GM talk about, because we
Yeah.
haven't really heard a lot about that in the past, and instead we've just heard about, um, you know, boohoo, this is horrible, we've lost everything in one
Yeah.
summer, this really sucks. And it's like, well, it's
Yeah.
kind of your own fucking fault.
Yeah.
Anyways,
That's kind of what happens when you have a player that you're telling everybody you want to build a team around. Some might call him a franchise type player, and you offer him a fucking bridge deal.
mhm,
Imagine that.
yeah,
I honestly don't think he would have stayed in either way other than being tied into a contract. But
I
I
think
think,
he would have stayed for at least the next few years, and I think that, I mean, just because he was tied into the contract,
Mhm.
Kachuk, that is. But I also think that, Sutter not being here, I do think that, I think that the whole Sutter thing just didn't make, somehow getting 104 points wasn't fun for him. Somehow getting 115 points wasn't fun for Gaudreau.
yeah, I mean,
That's a
it clearly
small
wasn't.
part of the reasons they left. But
Yeah, for sure. Like it clearly wasn't the team to bring Sutter into. I mean, we said it right away that it's not really a Sutter style of player
mhm,
or any of them, right? I mean that being said, Sutter was able to produce 5 or 6 different
career
career
seasons.
seasons from players. So I don't know. I mean, but yeah, I mean, he would get the best out of a lot of guys. They just didn't necessarily like his antics and how they had to go about to get those those numbers, right? But
Absolutely. And so those are two of the things I like, the first two things I really took out of the press conference and the interview and stuff like that. Um,
yeah,
I think there's a few other things he said. He said, um, uh, he's going to leave roster spots open for young players, which for me is good, but also, what if they're not ready? Then you just have an empty roster spot.
yeah. But I mean, I think that we feel as a fan base that we have at least
Two,
two or three players that should be ready to go. And if they're not ready to go yet, then they're potentially never going to be.
yeah.
Um, one of the things I did read a quick little thing on Phillips and how he wants to be playing in the NHL next year, but didn't say it wasn't going to be for the Flames.
Yeah,
Didn't say anything like that.
not
But
tipping his hand. Yeah,
yeah, like yeah, okay. But I mean, he's one of the players that I don't feel is
is an
NHL
NHL player.
caliber. But
Me
we'll
too.
see, right? We'll see.
Um,
But we do have guys
Conroy
like
also
Zari, and
drafted him,
it's true.
right?
Yeah,
So
see.
I feel like there's more of a chance of him getting it, getting at least a chance if he is re-signed. I think there's more of a chance of him getting re-signed for those of you that, you know
Mhm.
want to see that. I personally couldn't
And
really care less.
I couldn't either, but I guess it really comes down to who they end up selecting as the coach, right? I mean, certain coaches can bring the best out of players. Obviously Phillips being in a defensive first um, system isn't going to work with his frame, his abilities, and what he's always been as a player. So, I mean, with Sutter still here, he would never have fit into that at all. But who knows?
See,
Maybe with a different coach, he does fit into it.
I mean, it's possible. My thing is that Phillips' game, his whole play style is battle in front of the net
Mhm.
and battle in the corners, which is good. But when you're like a massively undersized player in, that's kind of a weird way to put it, massively undersized. But in the NHL, it doesn't really work that well most of the time. If you look at players like Johnny Gaudreau or Marty St. Louis or whatever,
Mhm.
um, they're games are elusive, avoiding contact, um, offensively, and offensively skilled games, whereas Phillips is trying to get in front of the net and tip pucks and get rebounds. And while that works for some players, it works for Joe Pavelski, who's 6'1". It
Yeah.
works for Matthew Tkachuk, who's 6'3", I think. You know,
Well,
um,
that's right. Bigger frame, more mass on them as well, right?
mhm.
Like what
I
do we think
feel,
Phillips weighs? Like 148 pounds?
yeah, like, and he's 5'7", I think. He's small, right? And again, I just don't think that game works for small guys in the NHL. I
Mhm.
heard this thing about Kailer Yamamoto the other day from the Oilers, where apparently he said he gets hit in the head every game, and not because people are trying to, just because that's where their elbows are naturally.
Right. Yeah,
Like,
he's Phillips is 5'7" and 140 pounds according to Hockey DB.
yeah, like he's going like,
Wow.
yeah, net
Yeah.
front battles. Sorry,
Yeah.
bud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying to
I,
get in there
I
against
wish
Victor Hedman.
you luck. I wish you luck on a different team.
Yeah,
That's not going to work here.
exactly.
It wouldn't even work in the East.
No, exactly. But like I said, I think that, like, there's going to be room, like Conroy said, there's going to be room on the roster for no Walker Dewar is probably going to get a full time job. You'd assume probably Peltier is going to get a full time job. Zeri's going to get a look at the very least.
Yeah.
Um, Maybe Emilio Pedersen. He's looked really good in the AHL. A couple of other players who are knocking on the door and look like they could be close
Hmm.
would, you know, and I feel
Yeah.
like that's something this team needs in order to attract players, is to prove that opportunities are at the very least given.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's you need to give them the opportunity to to get forth, but then from that point, it's up to the player to grab it too, right?
yeah,
Because I mean,
absolutely.
we've
You
seen
can't
that.
just give a player who's not earning it the
That's
spot,
right,
right?
100%.
That happens to to a bunch of veterans, honestly, this past season, that didn't maybe deserve the spot they were in for the whole season or whatever. And that, and it's so weird saying this, but that bred a bad culture in a Sutter system, which is weird to me, because Sutter's whole thing has always been, and it generally has been like this, if you earn it, it's yours.
Yeah.
But he kind of didn't do that this past season, which is why he's not with us anymore.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Partially.
that's it, right? That's partially for sure.
Yeah.
And
Um,
who was the player that came over in the Uyghur Huberto trade?
Schwint.
Schwint, right?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
he's
Cole
been pretty
Schwint.
good too.
That's right. Maybe this is the season that he's given a chance at camp and see if he can pull something out of it, because he was interesting to me when we first made that trade last year. He was one of the pieces that I thought would actually develop into something, but I sure didn't hear much of him playing for the Wranglers. So
I actually did. I think he got better throughout the season. But I also listened to most of the Wranglers playoff games,
mm,
and he seemed to really be catching his stride in the playoffs. In the last 3 or 4 games, he actually did pretty good.
nice.
When other guys on the team weren't doing so great. Um,
Yeah.
Really, really good series, honestly, like really tight series. So it was,
That last one.
yeah, against Coachella Valley.
Yeah.
There was a 3 overtime game. I think game one was really good.
Yeah.
Um, So one other thing I have down here that I know you're going to really enjoy is we will have a captain next year, period.
Well, fucking hallelujah.
Yeah. He
Like,
said he really didn't agree with how there wasn't a captain. He really um
I
said
suppose,
it obviously wasn't his choice, and he voiced it, and it never happened, but it's going to happen. He said we're going to have a captain for next season. So
I mean, he would be that person that would have a problem with it, right? I
yeah,
mean, look at him giving it over to Jerome, right?
he
He,
literally saw that there was a captain better suited
yeah,
to being a captain than him, and he was like,
yeah,
"Here you go."
he knows how important that is in a locker room,
Yeah,
right? I don't care how many leaders you have in the room. It's great to have them, but you need somebody with that mark. That I am the guy.
yeah. He said he was in the room a few times, and he was hearing the players talk about not maybe not agreeing with something Sutter was doing or whatever, and then trying to figure out who was going to go talk to him about it, and
Right,
then just nobody did because they
right.
didn't know which of the 17 fucking alternate captains to pick.
Yeah.
um so yeah, and this is what I'm talking about. Like he seems to have a really good grasp and a good relationship with a lot of the players, and I like that to a point, but it also, with the whole maybe not being cutthroat enough thing, that
Mhm.
kind of worries me just based on he doesn't seem like the type of guy who's just going to go ahead and make a tough decision that's including a friend of his.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's one of the things, right? Being able to separate work and play.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good that he has a good relationship with the players. I think that's a really good thing. But as long as he's able to recognize when to separate it, because the GM doesn't need to be holding hands with players down the hallway. He's still in charge and needs to show that he's in charge. And so as long as the people will respect him and do as he says, right?
Hmm.
And
Absolutely.
that's my biggest fear, because I know the players will like him as a in that position, but as long as it's suitable for the actual organization to make some good decisions with, I'm on board with it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Um, so before we get into the questions he was asked about coaching in specific, and what he's looking for in a new coach. Um, I just wanted to touch on the other guys who got hired or promoted.
Hmm.
Um, so they kept Chris Snow where he is, and on the Flames Talk podcast, he actually went into a lot of detail about what Chris Snow actually does, which I wasn't aware of. I thought that basically mostly just because of his condition, I thought that he was more of a figurehead in a feel good story. But I guess he does a lot of analytics work and a lot of contract negotiations and stuff like that.
Really,
Um, yeah,
I didn't know that about the contract. That's kind of cool. I knew he was really good at the analytics.
I did too, but I thought that since
and
his
and
condition,
and
I
I,
thought
and
that
I
probably,
said was, and I meant to say is.
yeah,
Yeah,
and I I knew he was, but I didn't know he still is.
yeah, yeah, fair.
Yeah. Um, and then they promoted Pascal. I can't remember the exact um role Pascal is going to be in, but he's going to be with the Flames and not the Wranglers now.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Does
So
that mean does that mean we have more of Cassie? Whoop whoop.
I don't think I think she was told to not be calling games that include her husband, but that's just a rumor. I have no idea.
I feel like that's just a rumor.
Yeah.
Um, I think what it was in the Canadian market, she wasn't allowed to call games in which potentially Connor McDavid might be brought up. Something
Isn't
like that.
he brought up in every game in the intermission? Isn't somebody
Yes.
is always compared to Connor McDavid, even if you're the fucking Rangers playing against the Bruins.
Well,
It's just how it is.
between Cassie and
On the Ryan Singh.
oh god. Um no, Kelly, Rudy,
Yeah.
man alive. Just ask him
Um,
out. Just ask him out. Get it done with.
yeah. And let's just talk about Dave Nonis. Do you know much about Dave Nonis?
I don't know a ton about him.
So he's been in the past. He was the general manager, the full on GM of a very, very, very like I don't even want to say mediocre because it was bad.
Yeah.
Toronto team.
Yeah.
And then he was I don't know the era that he was the Canucks GM, but I want to say it was just around the time I think it was around the time they were like making the playoffs all the time and they were like our kryptonite.
Yeah.
Um so like he's the good thing is that he's been a GM in a Canadian market and he talked to Pat too and I he talked a lot about wanting to be wanting to be Craig's person to talk to when it comes to being a full-time GM in a Canadian market to help him through that.
Yeah.
Even though I'm sure Craig's seen it for the last 12 years. But
Well, and I mean,
I'm just worried because of how fucking bad that Toronto team was for how fucking long it was bad for.
well, you look at how bad it was and for how long, and you got you got your Dave Nonis obviously, but then you have you had Burke there during that same time, right? So
So he followed Burke around because he was Vancouver Burke area.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So obviously he's a Berkey guy, which makes sense,
Anaheim Burke era too.
right?
Yeah.
So clearly, if he's a Burke guy, then he would be a an Edwards guy as well, right?
I've never thought of that, but yeah, you are correct.
So, I mean, yeah,
As long as he doesn't get final say, as long as he's just helping with the business side of it, then
yeah,
I'm okay with it. But if
exactly.
he gets final say in any of the hockey decisions, I'll be kind of worried.
Yeah,
That's how I'll say that.
that makes sense.
Shall we take a break and talk about DraftKings or
Nothing would make me happier.
oh, I know you love it. That's why you always do the ad read.
Yeah, I'll try and be a little more
Sucker.
peppy, a little more peppy this time. Light the lamp during the hockey playoffs with DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can make a $5 bet and score $150 in bonus bets instantly. We're just a couple of short weeks away from crowning a brand new champion in the NHL, so download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and sign up with code THPN. New customers can make a $5 hockey playoff bet or $150 in bonus bets instantly. That's code THPN, only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Rolling back to this Dave Nunes, right? I'm just kind of finding out that he's actually been brought in as the assistant GM, and according to this article, as well as the senior vice president of hockey operations. Now, I mean, it seems like a big task, and you did just remind me that he does have some background in the hockey market in Canada, which is great. It'd be great to help Craig out with that. But hasn't Craig also been doing that for the last 8 years?
That's why I was confused by them talking about that in the press conference. I was like, well, he's been learning that for 12 years or
Yeah,
20 years if you think about it.
sure. Yeah, how long has Craig been at, I mean, he was the what did they give him as a title first? It was like assistant to the assistant
Yeah. Yeah,
or
it was
something.
something ridiculous like that.
It was just like, we're just gonna give you a job because we like you.
I think what that ended up being is basically the Abbotsford Heat's assistant.
Right.
But
Okay.
you're right. It was assistant to the assistant or whatever.
Right.
But what his job, I believe, was Abbotsford Heat's assistant,
Yeah.
basically.
And then we gave him the assistant role, and his main duty for his first 2 years was getting Gaudreau signed. And he did it. Damn it.
He did it
He
the
did
first
it.
time.
That's right. Yeah. Well, maybe Brad should have kept his mouth shut and just sent Conroy in there. And
Well,
we'd
to be
still have
fair,
number
Conroy
13.
did say it's a done deal.
Well, he probably had it done, and then fucking Brad stuck his nose in it.
No, no, no,
And
no. You can't give him that extra 250,000.
or something, right? Well, I mean, I feel like it was more because didn't Guy go on that interview, say that it was an insulting
It
offer?
wasn't insulting. Yeah, that's what I gather. Actually, I think his dad said that, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up with Nonas because it was like, well, for the Canadian market, that's confusing to me because that's all Craig has seen.
I am very confused by why they felt like they needed Nonus, especially. You know what? I think I may have just put it together. I think it may be a what's the word I'm looking for? A future fuck, this is an unfortunate thing to say, and a future replacement for Chris Snow.
Mm. I think that's a horrible replacement for Chris Snow.
I I'm just saying it sounds like he's got two different completely made up positions that don't make any sense, and we have somebody in a assistant GM role currently who's has to go to the hospital all the time, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I suppose, looking into the future, you need to make sure that you have the
Covered.
pieces in place. I I just personally, I think that Chris Snow is a much smarter person in that role, and
Oh,
to
I
fill
agree.
fill it with a Dave Nunes is not doing the team any justice. We'll say.
No, I agree.
I think that'd
Um,
be that was the two steps back, as you brought up earlier.
yeah, and making sure you have the pieces in place for the future in case. Um, doesn't sound like it's Brad Tree Living style, so let's hope that it's Craig Conroy style.
Here you go.
Um,
I like that.
so he
Less
was asked lots
less
of
lawyer.
questions. Was that?
It'll be less lawyer like.
Yeah, it'll. I think it'll be more uh personable,
Mm.
if you know
I
what I
mean,
mean.
Conroy does a fantastic interview.
And he never stops.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Whenever there was something that may, you know, some little tidbit of information that the fan was trying to find out, they'd be like, "Well, we need to get Conroy on. He'll spill the beans, right?
Yeah,
Accidentally on purpose."
they were joking about that a lot too. You know, Pat kept saying like, "Oh, you know, when you talk and whatever," and then Conroy would start laughing, and because he knew what he meant, right? He's like, "Oh,
Yeah,
you know, yes, I talk too much," and I think Pat also told a little story about whenever anybody in the hockey operations sees Conroy in the hallway, they have to walk a little faster or whatever, so they don't get stopped for half an hour. But like
That's funny.
it's
It's
part of
funny
his,
because it's true, right?
yeah. And that's paraphrasing the story. Anyways, um, he was asked about what he wants in a coach. First of
Hmm.
all, he said that's not his first order of business
Interesting.
because there's scouting meetings for 3 straight days.
3 whole days, huh?
Yeah. He said he was in a scouting meeting, I think, in between the press conference and the Pat thing, and then he was going to another one afterwards.
Nice.
So I guess that's a lot of scouting meetings. I don't hate that. I think the coach is obviously a very important thing, but if it's got to wait 3 days, whatever. Um,
Yeah. I
and
mean, we can announce a coach in July, to be honest.
yeah, well, I mean, I think the decision on the coach also has to not be too long because we have, I believe, Mitch Love and Ryan Huska expiring, and we have players who are waiting to find out who the coach is.
Right.
So July, maybe not, but if it's like fucking June 3rd, that's all right, I guess. Um,
Well, June 3rd is like a week and a half away. So
yeah,
I feel like that might be quick, but who knows? Those contracts run out at the end of June.
yeah.
So I mean they've got a couple of weeks for sure to
And I
let's
know
let's
Husk or not
focus in
Huska.
on the let's focus in on the draft and get this right.
Yes, that first of all.
Yeah.
Um,
Let's face it, with coffee starting at $5 and our bank account somehow always depleting, we are officially entering a dupe session. Most products do the same thing but are priced differently solely based on the brand name. So a good duplicate or dupe is crucial for getting the highest quality at the best price. One dupe you definitely shouldn't sleep on: Raycon wireless earbuds. Raycon is premium audio at the perfect price point, so you can listen to what you want, when you want, without breaking the bank. Raycon's mission is to prove that you shouldn't have to pay an arm and a leg for quality sound and essential smart tech listening features. You can get a pair and a spare and still pay less than you would with some of those other, more big name tech brands out there. Raycon knows that in this economy, every purchase needs to be perfect. They offer buy now, pay later options. Right now, you can pay as low as $18 at checkout. They have an easy and free return guarantee. They offer 2 years of product protection insurance for just a few bucks. They offer free domestic shipping and flat fee international shipping. And they have over 50,000 five-star reviews. With some great features such as earbud tap functions, noise isolation, and 8 hours of playtime. Go to buyraycon.com/THPN today and get 15% off your Raycon order. That's buyraycon.com/THPN to score 15% off. Buyraycon.com/THPN.
Mitch Love on Wrangler's locker cleanout day
Mhm.
said he hadn't had any discussions with management yet, but that was also before, or maybe it was the day that it leaked that it was like for sure Conroy, but it was like only a couple days ago. So maybe he just hadn't had those discussions because they didn't know who to have the discussions with yet.
Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
fair.
I mean,
But
exactly. So, I mean, those to have those conversations on day one or two, I think, with potential applicants, if you will, for the coaching position. I mean, that's rushing it. I know we need a coach, but I mean, I would much rather them take their time and get it right.
I agree with that. Here's some of the criteria that Craig Conroy said he's looking for in a coach. A couple of these things really uh, kind of make me happy, honestly. So let's start with the one thing that I'm kind of iffy about. but he said that it doesn't have to be a previous NHL coach. Um, which I mean, I guess that points to Love, which is kind of a guy who I wouldn't mind. I'm not sure if it's the right choice, but I like it.
Yeah.
Um, so he said that. What do you think?
I I would have Mitch Love in my top five
I'd
for what I believe to be somewhat available.
I'd like him to be probably an assistant coach.
Sure.
Um,
Yeah, him and Huska.
yeah. Um, I feel like because Huska's already an assistant coach, I kind of feel like if he doesn't get a
Mm.
promotion, like he was, I believe, a finalist for the job in Detroit last year. I think he's going to be
Mm.
taken
Yeah, that's a
if
good point.
he's not. Anyways, so another thing he said was we can't always be at we can't always be at odds. We won't always agree on everything, but we have to at least get along. Meaning the GM and the coach, because obviously he had a first row seat for
Yeah,
Tree Living in Southern.
yeah. I mean, and that goes without saying. Like
I mean,
obviously,
you'd think so, but
yeah. I mean,
we just
whether
watched something
they
happen
see,
for 2 years.
no, I know, but I mean, for him to say that is kind of comical. Like, yeah, I mean,
You
obviously,
shouldn't have
Craig.
to say that, but he does, and that's
Yeah,
fucking horrible.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, they don't have to agree on styles and things like that. But if they can't get along, that's not going to work.
Yeah, exactly. And if they can't have a fucking conversation about it,
Yeah,
then there's a problem.
yeah,
And
exactly.
the last point that he really brought up that I seemed to at least care enough to write down, it's got to be a fun place to be, fun place to play. Um,
Oh, Craig. He's all about his fun and his jokes and his good times.
mhm.
But you're right.
But I
It
mean,
does need the atmosphere needs to improve. Last year was horrendous. You can see it on almost every player's face.
like all fucking year,
Yeah.
or at least after the second or third week of the season,
Yeah.
like every player was fucking miserable except for Peltier, who then sat
Yeah.
in the press box for
Yeah. And became
6 weeks.
miserable. I think the
Yeah,
only two people that were loving life
Tyler
was
Toffoli,
Zadorov and Steger or
Uyghur,
no Stetcher.
Stetcher. Well, and Toffoli too.
Napoli was having fun, obviously, but I mean he was
Yeah,
having career year in goals.
yeah.
So of course he's having fun.
One thing I forgot to mention that he mentioned also, which is, again is painfully obvious. He said he thinks we're going to have to change up the core a little bit. We can't go into the season with 7 unrestricted free agents or pending unrestricted
Ending.
free agents.
Yeah.
So,
Huh. I feel like we've touched on this topic
like
a few
every
times.
single episode all year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
So he said one of his first phone calls is going to be Lindholm and see how that goes. He said he wasn't in the exit interviews, but he has been around the team and he kind of feels like he knows where they're all at, but he's still
Yeah.
going to call them all and see what's changed after all of the changes. One
Which is
thing I
smart.
found interesting was fucking Francis said he's or was it Francis? I think it was Francis said that he had talked, or no, it was Ryan Leslie said he had talked to at least one player who was waiting to make sure that Craig was going to be named, and then he was
Hmm.
going to be happy.
Really? Did he
Yeah,
name the player?
no,
See, this is interesting. The names that you have for these very polarizing media personnel like Mr. Steinberg and fucking Francis. I
Ryan
feel
Leslie.
and Ryan Leslie. I feel like out of all of that, Ryan Leslie is the only one that deserves Mister. It should have been Mr. Leslie.
Is it? Well, I mean, fucking Francis. He
I
deserves that.
mean,
I
yeah,
mean,
that just
he
goes
doesn't
without
really
saying.
deserve much, but
Didn't we should just petition to have his name changed?
yeah, sure. That wouldn't go very well on the radio.
I
But
don't care.
uh,
Well, neither does he. So,
uh,
hey,
he's got a face for it at least.
he does. It's
Uh,
those three-piece suits.
yeah. One thing I think it'd be kind of remiss not talking about, even though I really don't want to, is this whole Iginla thing. Everybody's so fucking horny over him coming in. He's not as of yet.
Yeah, he
Don't
still
know if
wants to
he's.
coach his kid, doesn't he?
That's what I gather.
Hmm.
That's what I heard him say, like, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago or whatever, when he was at that Wranglers game. He went on the morning show and said basically that. Um, However, I've heard rumors about him doing that, but also being like a long distance consultant for Conroy, something like that. I
What's he
don't know.
gonna what's he gonna consult about?
I don't fucking know. Um,
Like
Draft my kid. I don't know.
like normally when
um,
you're hiring a consultant, aren't you hiring somebody that's been in a position
right
that would
next to
know,
you, also.
right?
Um, so I don't know what all that is about. Conroy said, when asked about it, basically said that it's not happening as of yet. Um, they've talked about it for years, that it would be fun to run an organization together. But he wants to
Sure.
coach his kid and blah blah blah. So haven't had time to talk about it since he's actually been named. So we'll see what happens in the future. My prediction is that he comes in as some sort of like assistant to the assistant, or assistant coach of the Wranglers or something like that next year.
I think that'd be funny if Craig gave him his old position, assistant to the assistant.
Yeah,
It'd be
you're
awesome.
you're not even my assistant,
You got to start here, boy.
but which is how it should be. It frustrates me seeing so many people being like, "Oh, this guy should be our head coach right now." It's like, this
Half
guy is literally coaching fucking 15-year-olds right now.
right.
Let's
Half
let
the fan
him,
base wants him to be fucking playing right now.
right?
Like, just
There's a lot of
calm
people who
down.
want us to bring Lucic back too.
Yeah, I'm
Are you
one of
one?
them.
Yeah. Are you actually?
I mean, I don't know. It
Yeah.
depends on. I mean, obviously, I'm liking what I'm hearing from Conroy, where it doesn't feel, at least right now, doesn't feel like we're going to be hiring or bringing in 3 or 4 or 5 players on an entry level, or not an entry, a league minimum deal to play on the fourth line. So I'm kind of excited about that. So
Me
I
too. I
mean,
mean, to me, it's one thing if it's like one guy, or if it's like a guy who's your 13th forward, and then like maybe one guy for the fourth line or something like that. But I think we're in a spot now where, like, league wide, kind of, where your fourth liners have to have speed and skill. Um, Toughness is all well and good as well, and physicality is all well and good as well. But
mhm.
you got to be able to have some jump, and
Yeah,
sometimes we'd be looking at Lucic and be like, man, he's skating fast, but like, Lucic skating fast is like me, who skates twice every 10 years.
I mean, I think you're giving yourself a little too much credit. I don't
No,
think you
I
could keep up with Luch,
obviously, but you know
but
what I mean.
I do. But there was a few times last year, especially early on in the season, where it's just like, wow, look at him go! Like he looks energized again. I
Yeah.
mean, he still wasn't exactly keeping up with all of the play, but there was quite a few times where he was winning races to the puck, which was mind blowing to me.
Yeah. And like, getting that odd adrenaline rush, sure, but like, it happened for a game or two here and there, or for a shift or two here and there, and then the rest of the season it was.
And then he got promoted to the second line. Boom.
He got promoted to the second line the game after he was a healthy scratch for a few games, and then he came back and had one decent game and got put on the second line.
That's how that works. Sutter boy.
Anyways, that's all I really have when it comes to this. You got anything else you want to say, or
No,
we
like I said,
good
I'll
to call her a relatively short episode today?
holy. Wouldn't you mean the two of us didn't ramble on for an hour and a half?
Or did we?
We may have. We never know. We lose track of time.
No.
We shut the video off and go, oh, damn it, we did it again.
Oh, well, I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in for another episode, everybody. Make sure you leave a comment below and let us know who you think the next coach should be for the Calgary Flames. Also, let us know what you think about the new hiring with, I guess, not new hiring, the new promotion given to Craig Conroy as the new general manager of the Calgary Flames. Make sure you subscribe, share with your friends, and don't forget to follow us on the audio podcast as well on Spotify and Google and Apple, wherever you get your pods from. Thanks for tuning in on this episode. We'll catch up in a few days and maybe do a recap on what's going on in the playoffs and just some other, hockey related news. Hopefully, we'll be back with a coach signing in the very near future.
Coach signing, maybe a trade or two, maybe some fun stuff happening and not too far away.
That's right.
Cheers.
So until next time, go Flames.